Man was ill, Lazarus, of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother, Lazarus, was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this he said to his disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Judeans were just now trying to stone you, and are you going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble, because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble, because the light is not in them." After saying this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him." The disciples said to Jesus, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right." Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead. For your sake, I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us go also, that we may die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Judeans had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, Mary got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Judeans who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Judeans who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Judeans said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him and let him go. Many of the Judeans, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord. You're welcome to be seated. In this, the death and the raising of Lazarus, in this whole account, there's this repeated theme, a pattern, that those around Jesus, they fear or they regret Lazarus' death. They center upon his death, while Jesus is centered upon something else, which he speaks of as glory. As when Jesus said, this illness does not lead to death, but to glory, to the glory of God. And there are a lot of different worldly associations with the word glory. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to point at them. I want to point here and say, if we follow Jesus through this passage, we can understand Jesus' definition and understanding of glory. So we can follow it through this repeated theme, where the world centers on death, but Jesus centers on this other thing, glory, which is also connected with belief and with resurrection. Here's how it plays out through the passage. When Jesus reveals that Lazarus is dead and that he's heading to Judea so that you may believe, but Thomas just hears the death. He says, oh, let's go with him so that we can die also with him. The going down back to Judea, south back to Judea, where Jesus' opponents, you might say, I don't know if he sees them as opponents, they see him that way. He knows what they intend for him. When Jesus starts to get close to Bethany, both Martha and Mary come out and they say, if you had been here, he would not have died. They're looking backwards and they have that regret and that centering on the death. And even when Jesus speaks to them of resurrection, they can't quite tear themselves away from death. And it comes through even as it goes on, even in the physicality of the narrative. Take away the stone. Lord, he's been dead 4 days. There's already a stench. He's so dead. And the bystanders, they're whispering, and some of them say, see how he loved him, but others whispered and said, couldn't this man who restored the blind man's sight have kept his friend from dying? And to all of them, that's where the narrative ends. And also at the same time, as all of this is taking place, we get this kind of particular intensity and emotionality from Jesus that we rarely get a look at through the gospel. I think there are two layers going on, well, at least two layers that stand out to me about why we get this intensity from Jesus in this passage. And the first is that these were his close friends. The whole family were his friends: Lazarus, Martha, Mary. And as he encounters their grief, and the grief of their community, he's moved with them. But secondly, Jesus is very consciously on the path that leads to the cross, to his own death. His ministry has really gone public. He's known, and he knows the intentions of those who fear him and fear his teachings and his healing. Bethany, as the passage says, Bethany is 2 miles from Jerusalem. So while Jesus can sort of look here and see the death of his friend, he just needs to raise his eyes a couple degrees and he can see his own death approaching. So when all these people around him, his dear friends, his community, his disciples, who are those closest to him, when they respond to Lazarus' death with this sense of finality and the shame of death, how is Jesus to assume that they're going to respond to his coming death? And his death is going to be much more shameful. It's a theatrical Roman production to tear someone down in the moment of their death. So Jesus has reason to be sort of doubly grieved, once for his own friend, Lazarus, and again for the basic failure of all his friends to see. Because Jesus has been, all the time he's been with them, he's been just fearlessly going to where death is. He went towards the dead boy on the funeral bier who's coming out of a village. He went towards the dead girl and raised her from her bed at home. That's what's depicted in this window. He went towards lepers and persons who were blind and possessed and outcast and unclean. And they saw, his friends had seen him go, in all these encounters, go to where death was and then proceed beyond it to resurrection and belief and the glory of God. And yet still his friends think life ends at death. All of that, his grief for his friend and that other grief, I hear all of that when it says Jesus was greatly disturbed and deeply moved. When he dies, will they be ready for his glory, or will they have a funeral and go back to fishing? So at the grave of Lazarus, when he gets to the grave, Jesus acts to set his friend's death right, but maybe even more so with his eyes towards Jerusalem and towards the world that he loves. Maybe even more so, Jesus raises Lazarus to set right the people's, our relationship to death, to all death. It's whereas with other healings, he said, don't tell anyone about this. The moment in his life has changed, and this time he waits until the whole community is round to see this, and he prays, Father, I know that you hear me. But I'm saying this for the benefit of everyone who's standing around. I want now everyone to see this together. And he's a teacher at heart. And Jesus is revealing, it's like if you thought it was as though you thought you were seeing a 2-act play. And the 2 acts were fear and regret and then death. And then Jesus says, this is a 3-act play. That would necessarily reframe the entire experience, right? The whole play would be reframed by that. So because the 3rd act is glory, we get set free to reframe the 1st act, not as fear, but as life. The 3 acts are life. death, and glory. I have seen neighbors in Christ live that way at the end of their lives, to receive the final word that the medical care that can be given has reached its limit, and to see them breathe with that, and maybe not in a single moment, but in that extended moment, to breathe and to welcome their friends to come and see them, to intentionally make time with those they love, to welcome people to sing over them, right? And because they could keep living, because there would be death and then there would be glory. And I've seen this in daily life, which I want to be quick to celebrate just as much. Just in the recent weeks, I spoke to someone who's about my age and has just been getting to know Jesus and just been getting to see the resurrection coming alive in the world, in themselves. Just in the last months, they said to me, so they called me this week, or we set up a phone call, and I called them, and they said, I was worried to tell you about this. They kind of a profound shift in their discernment, and part of what that meant is that I'm not actually going to really see them again. They're going somewhere else. But they said, in the past, I would have just ignored your phone calls and never talked to you again. But now, as I'm following Jesus, I had to let you know. And I thought that's the entire shift right there. It was so beautiful. They said, they were basically saying, I used to fear and then let things end at death. But now, because I believe and feel and know the glory that's beyond death, I'm going to be alive today. And so because of their belief, they and I went forward from that phone call, connected, revived, sent to the rest of the day. Sent, that's the word, that's what the word apostle means, one who is sent. So we both went forth, because of their belief, we both went forth apostly. That's the face of belief. Belief in this passage in John, in the way John talks about belief. It's not about believing in Jesus' ability to pull off one single act, like the raising of Lazarus. You can see that when you get to the close, the last sentence in this passage. Many of the Judeans, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. Many, not all, many. If you see a dead man come back from the dead, and belief is about believing what you just saw with your own eyes, and that thing, all of them would have believed. But belief, the fact that many of them believe, but maybe not all, it points to the fact that belief, the transformation of belief, was about more than just saying, that man definitely just came back from the dead. Belief was about seeing what Jesus was saying about all of reality being this play in three acts: life, death, glory. And that seeing, that's what the passage about the dry bones, right? Jesus looked around at this moment when he's deeply moved. He looks around and he sees and says, he's looking at all his friends and saying, oh, the dry bones, God. No, the dry bones. And he's speaking to his friends and speaking to God and calling forth his friend Lazarus from the tomb to breathe life into these bones. Let them rise and stand again. The whole house, God, please, let the whole house of your people stand again in belief. And that transformation can transform a funeral and can equally transform a phone call.